Hello and welcome to another Python programming tutorial from Programming to Success. Today we'll be looking at how to make a random password generator in Python. Using what we learned in our past few videos, like functions, modules, and loops, we will be able to write more complex programs in shorter amount of time. So, I bring to you a random password generator in Python. The first step to our random password generator is that we need to import the necessary modules. As we learned in our previous video, modules are used to combine things like functions into larger, more powerful programs. And we need to import this module if we want to use it in our code. If we want to use functions from a module, we have to import that module at the beginning of our program, or else Python won't know what we're talking about. You will understand what these two modules are later on in the code, but for now, just import them. The two modules we're going to be using are the random module and the string module. So just import them. Let's say import random and import string. Okay, now let's decide on the structure of the password we want to be generated. How about we have one word that's an adjective, and then one word that's a noun, then a number, and then a character. So the first thing we need to do is create a data set, because Python needs to be able to choose a random option that is a part of some kind of a set. So we need to create that set. Let's create a set of some adjectives first. So Python can randomly select one of those adjectives later on and then store that inside of a variable. So as you probably know, we create data sets with lists. So we can create a list called word1, and then, as you probably know, we use square brackets, and then our items. Let's just say tall. These are all going to be adjectives. Tall, small, short, blue, gloomy. We can have angry, red, brave, curious, and green. Okay, similarly, we have to create another data set of some nouns, so Python can randomly choose one of those nouns later on in the code. So just like we created a set of some adjectives so Python can select one of these, we have to do the same for nouns. We can call this one word2 and store some nouns in there. So let's say computer. As you probably know, a noun is a person, a place, or a thing. So we can say computer, Python, and book. We can have backpack, tiger, elephant, shirt, tie, and school. So Python will randomly select one of these later on in our code, and then that will be incorporated into our password. So Python will randomly select one of this and randomly select one of this, and they'll be both combined, and we can have that as our password. But we still need to add a number and a character. So first, let's have Python select a random one of these, and this is when our random module comes in. We can use the random.choice function that is a part of this module to have Python randomly select something that's a part of this list. So this is how we would do so. We would say random.choice. We're just calling the function. And then we need to pass a parameter. Let's say word1, because that's where we want Python to randomly choose something in. So Python will randomly choose whatever is inside of word1. And this list is inside of word1. So Python will randomly choose one of these. And let's say it chooses gloomy. Then we can incorporate gloomy into our password. However, we don't want this data to just be lost after it's done being selected. To save our data, we would store it inside of a variable. Let's call this variable adjective, and we'll store this inside of there. Similarly, we have to do the same for word 2. We have to have Python randomly choose one of these. So we can call this variable noun because these are all nouns, and then random.choice, and then the parameter we're passing is word 2. So Python will randomly select one of these and store that inside of noun. The next step to our password is we have to incorporate a number. Well, how would we do that? Would we create a list of all the numbers we need and then randomly choose one of those? Well, no, because as programmers, we always look for a fast way to do things. So, to randomly choose a number, there is actually a built-in function that helps out. It's the random.randrange function. It allows us to specify two values and it'll randomly choose a number in between these two values. So let's say we want our number to be between 1 and 1,000. We can say random.randrange, that's the name of our function, and then 0 or 1 comma 1,000. So Python will randomly choose one of these, something that is in between 1 and 1,000. So because of the values we specified, Python will choose a number that's in between 1 and 1,000. We can change these values. So if we say 1 and 100, Python will choose a number that's between 1 and 100. However, like before, we need to store this data inside of a variable. Let's call that variable number. So Python will automatically choose a number that's in this range and store that inside of the variable number. Now, the final part of our password, a character. We have to incorporate a character inside of our password. A character is something like a dollar sign, a hashtag symbol, a period, like punctuation. Well, this is where our string module comes in handy. The string module is a Python module that lets you specify a constant, and it will let us access that constant. So, in this case, our constant will be punctuation. Let's just try printing out this function. Say print string.punctuation and run this code. All these punctuations will be printed out. These are all the punctuations that Python supports. So we'll be able to access all of these. And if we combine this string.punctuation function with the random.choice function we used earlier, Python will allow us to randomly choose one of these and we'll be able to incorporate it inside of our password. So let's just do that. We have to combine these two. So we say random.choice and then string.punctuation. Punctuation is our constant in this case. So Python will randomly choose one of those punctuations that Python supports. And since we want to save this data, let's store it inside of a variable. Let's call that character. And this will be stored inside of there. Now the final thing we have to do is set our password. So let's create a variable called password. And we'll store all of these stuff combined. So adjective, one of these randomly chosen values, plus noun, plus number, and plus character. So Python will combine all of these into our password. However, this will not work because number is an integer and these are all strings. And the simple solution for this, like we learned in one of our previous videos, is to convert this. So we just convert this to a string using the str function. Now this will be a string and we'll be able to combine everything that was chosen. Word 1, so one of these was randomly chosen and stored inside of word 1. That was stored inside of adjective. And then same thing for word 2. A randomly chosen value of this was stored inside of noun. And for number, a number within this range was stored inside of number. And for character, one of the random punctuations that Python supports was stored inside of character. And we just combine all of these into our password. And the final thing we have to do is print our password out back to the user because we want it to be displayed on the screen. So if we say print password, now when we run our code, we'll get our password. In this case, tall was chosen from word 1. That was the randomly selected value. From word 2, book was the randomly selected value. Our randomly selected number was 919. And our randomly selected punctuation was this curly braces. And that's our password. How about we make this password generator a little more complicated? So, how about we create an infinite while loop? And then we ask the user repeatedly if they like this password or not, the password that they just got. If they say yes, we'll just break the code. If they're fine with their password, we'll just break the code. If they're not fine with their password, we'll print out a new password. So how about we do that? Well, to create an infinite while loop, you know how to do this. We just say while and true, our Boolean value. So this will always be true, and Python will repeatedly, infinitely many times execute the code. And how about we print out an empty line first? So we get a gap between the question and the password that was just generated. And then our question, we use an input statement for this. So let's say answer is our variable, and we store input. Do you like this password? And then we'll say y/n, which means tell them to answer in yes or no format. So, do you like this password? So that will be displayed on the screen, and the user will be able to type in their decision, and whatever they type in will be stored inside of answer. And the next thing we need to do is use an if structure to see if they typed in yes or no, and decide based on that. So we can say if answer equal to y. So if the user types in yes, we will print out, we'll just break the code because the user likes their password. They said yes, so break the code. There's nothing that needs to be done. However, if the user types in no, we will print out a new password. We'll just say print password. So a new password will be printed out if they say no. But as you probably know, this won't work because the same values that were generated earlier will still be stored inside of there. If we want a new value to be repeatedly generated, we just have to copy and paste this chunk of code inside of our while loop. We'll just copy and paste that, and then we can indent this. So every time Python comes inside of the while loop, the infinite while loop, it will generate a new one of these. Every time a new one of these options will be generated. And then the new password will be stored inside of the variable password. So in this case, after the first password is generated, a new one will be generated and stored inside of password. And then we will ask them if they like it or not. If they say yes, we won't even do anything. We won't print out the new password. However, if they say no, the new password, the one that was just generated inside of this while loop, will be printed out. And then Python will go back up to this while loop, do the same code again if the user types in no. So if the user types in yes, it'll just break the code and nothing will happen after that. If the user types in no, a new password will be printed out and Python will go back up here. Then it'll generate new values, create a new password, and ask them the same question again. If they say no again, it'll print out the new password, go back up, generate new values. If they ever say yes, the whole code will just stop. So how about we run this code and try it out? Will first give us our password, which is blue shirt 620 and question mark. And then it says, do you like this password? Let's say we say no. A new password, green computer 466 /. That's our new password. And as long as we keep saying no, we'll get new passwords again and again. However, if we ever stop and say yes, break. The whole code will just stop and that's all. Well, now you know how to make a random password generator in Python. And as you can probably see, we used functions and modules to write more advanced programs than we have in the past. Please make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. If you have any questions, please let me know down below in the comments. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.